A very good morning to everybody, and I'll invite those who can to please turn on their videos. It is very nice to see one's audience, your smiling, eager faces, and especially the fact that we've come together this beautiful morning. I don't know, it has now almost, you might say, become a habit, but I have to say, sometimes there can be habits which don't mean much, and then there are habits which mean a lot. They feed you each time. And for me, this one habit, I realize now it has become a habit, is the habit of enjoying a Sunday morning with friends. And this is what's happening right now. Sunday, Paramhans Yogananda ji explained, and I hope you're enjoying it as much as I enjoy sharing it. Pretty much every Sunday I give a discourse. Is It's the day of the sun. It's the day of, Yogananda said, the inner sun is the spiritual eye. It is the day when, hopefully, I pray that you have a 5 day week at least, and that Saturday, Yogananda ji said, is for chores and household works and logistics, and spending time with friends, family, taking them out, doing whatever is required, meeting relatives, neighbors, such. He said Sunday, however, should primarily be reserved for, you might say, some contemplation, God contact, making up, you might say, on another level, on an inner level, that we can, who knows what this let's say coming week will bring. But the way the last week has gone, catch up on meditation, catch up on your reading, catch up on chanting. If there's any component of the spiritual path which has so far missed your understanding, go deep in it. 1 2 3 hours, lock yourself in the room, go out somewhere to some cafe, read, get to understand this. I don't know, but maybe sometimes these things can sound a bit urgent, but before I came on the path, I served in the emergency department for a couple years as a surgeon. And I have seen people go. When it's time to go, you gotta go. I've seen the best of doctors, friends, and relatives, and weeping, everybody, family standing next as if wanting to hold. Oh, can I want to say something? You can't. Now your turn will come. Like they say, nothing is forever. The turn will come in another incarnation, another body. You will have to recognize them. You will have to go through the rigmarole, as they say. So Swami used to say that Yogananda lived his life in urgency. Now, urgency does not mean restlessness. Urgency means to realize that every breath, every day, especially in these days, a Sunday morning, at least for me, has become much more precious. For me, actually, usually it's a Monday morning, because Sunday is a working day in the ashram. Satsangs, classes are happening. So for me, it's tomorrow morning that, okay, I'm by myself. I don't take calls and such. I focus on what am I doing? Why am I doing? Am I doing things okay? Am I accomplishing what I had come here years ago for? How can I do things better and things? And I'm sure you're doing that exercise, friends. And just to get onto the topic then very quickly, because remember, this pandemic is just one example which has taught. You see, the human mind is very easily exteriorized. Oh, the pandemic is happening. The third wave now might be coming. Who knows if it will come or not? But those are external things. Any moment, Yogananda ji said, which is not lived in God communion, is actually a sleepy moment. He said, you're wakeful only when you're joyful, when you're in God. Otherwise, we could be going through life, we could be doing a lot of things. But why are we doing it? For whom are we doing it? And if we don't understand that underlying consciousness, then you might say, on one level, like today's subject says, we are somewhere failing. Now, till we find God, you might say it is a lot of steps to success. And I hope you don't see it that way, the other way, that we are failing repeatedly. That, oh, I went to morning meditation today, I didn't find God. Oh, God, I bet he won't come in the evening meditation. Oh, I've read these books and I've been waiting all these years. Don't think that way. Kriyananda ji very beautifully writes in so many ways. And again, I urge you, like I did last week, that these readings, every line is worth meditating on. Don't be without these books. Take this theme for the week if it is helpful to you, and go deep with that. Anyway, the point I want to mention was Swamiji was very optimistic. He would make the most. Once somebody had a dream that master was this like shining light was emanating from him. He was just welcoming all students, disciples, and everybody was running towards him. And as we were running, the whole crowd was running, people would every now and then fall down, and but then they would get up and again start running and kind of just enter that light that was Yogananda. And when this dream was told, Swamiji asked this person who was narrating that, she said, "Sir, I saw myself in that dream, I saw many others." And he said, "Was I there also?" And she said, "Yes, sir, you were there." And then he said, "Did I fall?" And she said, "Yes, sir, you did. But I noticed that you got up very quickly. You dusted your clothes and you started running again." And Swami says, he said, "I had that feeling." And that on one level, it's not a fall to not find God. Actually, as that reading itself says, no one knows when God will come. Actually, it was very interesting that reading from the Bible, Swami chose says that you don't know when the Son of Man will come. Now, you see, on one level, for Christ, these two, you might say, expressions were used. Son of Man, that his human side. He was a child of some parents. He was between you and me, like us, in a body. He was ideally, however, the Son of God. The consciousness that he brought was the same consciousness of God, and so sometimes he would be referred to as the Son of God. You may think that finding our guru is like master said, that his guru came to him one day. He was inconsolably weeping. His meditations, his years of devotional ardor, his service, his knowledge of the need for a guru had still not brought him the guru. So that day, that prayer, that voice of Divine Mother came, "Thy master cometh today." Now, it's very interesting. Swami says that he didn't come for the other one. The other person just wanted to go to the market. Master also went to the market. He found vegetables and fruits over there for the ashram. Infinitely more importantly, he found his guru in that marketplace over there. And so Swami would say that again and again, as we try to look at the positive side. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's a remarkable statement in the final chapter, which is titled, "You shall attain me." Krishna is telling the devotee, "You shall attain me." And then he once again revises quite a few themes and things. And one of the sweetest things over there, he says, "Oh Arjuna, try to develop one pointed concentration on me. In deep meditation, adore me alone. Focus on me. If you cannot do that, serve me, thinking of me. If you cannot do that, and you fail in all of these, bring me thy failure, O devotee, and you shall attain me." That we often, now failure is of many kinds, that foolish virgin consciousness is of many kinds, and I'll come to that. But one could be primarily that if we fail, we keep the failure to ourselves. Think of it this way. You had an exam and you failed, let's say. Wouldn't you share it? Wouldn't you want go to a friend? I remember in college, a friend of mine had failed. He was right next to me in the hostel. And in first year for our college, if you failed, you went in a separate batch. So that meant separation also from your friends. And the moment I came to know he has failed, I went to his room. I was thinking, how could I console him? And I went and he looked at me first. And before I could say anything, he said, "Hey, how are you, Aditya?" I said, "I'm fine. I'm fine." And I said, "How are you?" And he said, "Oh, I'm fine." He said, "I'm fine. Shall we go for a cup of tea?" I said, "Sure, let's go for a cup of tea." And I said, "I'm very sorry to hear that you failed." He said, "Oh, no." He said, "You know what my dad told me about failure?" He said, "My dad told me failure if you fail." And he said, which often, by the way, happens in medical schools. There's just like, I don't know, we fail. Half the batch usually ends up failing at some or the other point by the time you graduate. And he said, my father told me, son, if you fail, it simply means you need more time. And he said, so I have gotten 6 more months, he said, to prepare. I have never forgotten the calmness, the wisdom, the acceptance of that friend of mine. And he didn't beat himself down. He just said, I need more time. Swami used to tell his own story and struggle with smoking. And he used to say that he loved, the smell of cigarette and coffee, usually after having his afternoon coffee. And he said, but he knew that he wanted to soon become a hermit. And he said, who ever heard of hermits who smoke? And he said, besides, if I go to a forest, I won't have the money to buy cigarettes. And he said, what shall I do? So, of course, naturally, the thought was give up smoking. Now, you have to understand a little bit the context of Swami or, anybody smoking back then in 1940s. It was around the 40s that the understanding that smoking is not good for you came. Earlier, actually, you see in 1930s also ENT specialists, doctors promoting cigarettes because they thought it was a cure for sinusitis. It was only in mid 40s and 50s that cancer, unfortunately, which we know is the outcome, often started coming out. That so many cases of cancer are coming, lung cancer. Why? Because people were smoking. So anyway, Swami, of course, and then he wasn't thinking, I believe, so much of lung cancer and those studies. He didn't mention that detail, at least. He just said it was not the right thing for him to do, he felt. But he said it was not easy to overcome that thing. He said he would try, and the next day he would find himself go back to it. And he would tell his friends, tomorrow I'm quitting smoking. And he would go back to his cigarettes. And then he would say, I'm quitting smoking. And his friend said, well, we've heard that before, Walters. And Swami said it happened actually, interestingly, for about a year. He thought every day he couldn't make it. But you know what happened? Here's the magical thing. And you may fill in the blank for what's your cigarette. Is it laziness? Is it anger? Is it not reading? Whatever. Swami says that throughout this year, unknown to anybody, he was practicing something. And he was inwardly, as he would go to sleep, he would tell himself, I haven't yet succeeded. So you see, he was meeting failure, you may say, on one level. But some goals are just too big. For each of us, our goals, what we have set, are the big goal. Our challenge is the biggest challenge for us. So, whatever it is that you're working on, perhaps you're going through a dry phase in devotion right now. Perhaps you're not sure of your worthiness before God. Whatever it is, maybe you're feeling out of touch. Maybe you're feeling the need to perhaps serve more. Whatever it is, don't waste more time beating yourself on it. Tell yourself in your heart first, I haven't yet succeeded. And Swami says, by doing that and putting energy and your thoughts and will in that direction, he says, you will gather slowly the momentum. You will fill yourself with that affirmation, that intention so much that one fine day, as it happened to him, he told his friends, tomorrow morning, I have quit smoking and I will not smoke from tomorrow. And his friends were like, Walters, we've heard that one before. And he said, I allowed them to say what they had to because they had heard that before. And what happened next day? He got up. He said he had not the slightest desire to smoke. He had half a packet of cigarettes left. He put them in his pocket. He said he passed them out to his friends. And he said he never ever had even the slightest desire to go back to it. Now that is turning our failure into, you might say, success. Now, what does it mean, that foolish virgin consciousness? Over here, quite directly, Yoganandaji says, it is the lack of devotion. We are right now, all of us, entering the winter season. How would life be without warmth, without a fire, without something hot? It would be extremely cold, dead. That is what the heart was placed in us for. Yogananda said, even if you're not feeling devotion, do some kriya and devotion will come to you. Pray to Divine Mother, give me devotion, give me love for you. think about her. Even Jnana Yoga can bring a lot of devotion. So many times, one can think that you're loving a certain object or a certain person. What do you really like in a person? What do you really like in an object? You like what they stand for, what they are expressing, what they live by. It has taken an outward form, you see. So in the same way, to feel that I don't know God, I haven't found him, is to declare your
हैं?
blindness in plain sight.
हाँ जी, अच्छा, आप ले आए गाड़ी?
So, what we need to do then is to try to, like I said, that Gyan Yogi's approach, that apply yourself and say, Divine Mother, you must be hiding over here, you must be hiding over there. And slowly, slowly, we find that we draw to those things to ourselves. We start seeing God in his one and many different forms. Sorry, I forgot my train of thought over there. Just give me a moment. Yeah. Now, Swami also mentioned this interesting point that often we are so busy in work, and quite paradoxically, that incident of Yogananda's life was happening in an ashram. That here he was, an ashram is supposed to be a place where one is supposed to feel God, serve God in one another. But in too much outwardness, that can be lost. It made me think of workplaces. Most of us don't have the luxury of living in a community or living in an ashram. And friends, if you are a person who is an employer, I urge you to take this very remarkable or holy step of encouraging your people to take some time out, certainly giving them 2 days off a week, but also some time, like we do in Ananda, 1 week's paid leave for seclusion. If 1 week is too much for you in the beginning, take 3 days of seclusion, 1 day of seclusion. It is a way of recharging yourself. Tell your family, I love you, I love my work, I'm not going to give it up, because often human nature goes between extremes. But I need to recharge myself. I need to read that book I've been kept keeping on the shelf for the longest time. I need to chant. I need to go deep in some of my practices. I remember one of my seclusions from years ago. I had experiences through the techniques which I had not had for years. In that 1 week of silence and seclusion, you cut everything out, you go back to it. Actually, I had a very interesting dream before I started that seclusion. I'll take just a few minutes. I see we are slightly over time. In that seclusion, which was in the Himalayas, and it was very close to where Swami Kriyananda ji had taken seclusion decades ago, I prayed to him in the night. I said, Swamiji, please bless me and my brother monks and all with the kind of peace you felt, which he had said he felt very deep divine peace over there. I said, please give us that peace also. And so I said my prayer and slept in the night. Early morning, I had my alarm for 5:30 a.m. and I had a dream around in the last 1 or 2 minutes of my sleep. And the dream was Swami Kiranandaji came to me and he showed me, he said, he was smiling. And then he didn't waste any time. He showed me like a smartphone like this. It was a white smartphone. And he said, Aditya, do you have one of these? I said, no, Swamiji. I used to have a very simple Nokia phone at that time. And he said that, what's changing? Something is changing over here. Anyway, I'll continue. And he said that, why don't you buy one of these? He says, I think this is exactly what you need. And he smiled. And of course, he had told me certain works which were very outward. And I was in the Himalayas for the first time, and this little thing took me. Oh, I want to go more on this side. And he allowed me to go. That week was very blessed. But then I came back to my life. I bought a smartphone. I have a smartphone even now. And the point is, human nature thinks either or, fasting or overeating, seclusion or too much work. But I think in our times, we can strike a balance. Another way to look at that foolish virgin consciousness is, are you even aware that God has to be found. Now, I think here that's not a question, but we'll see that in the world. People work so hard, not realizing what they are working for. They are chasing happiness, not finding it. Yet, many, many intelligent people fail to look at that side itself, that I'm not reaching somewhere. So, again, whether it is at that stage, sometimes we may go through that stage, sometimes we can become mechanical, sometimes we could be on the spiritual path and still not have that openness with God, that I'm still having this flaw in me, my Lord. Please, I bring it to you. Day by, I will bring it to you till you take it and transmute it, change it into something sacred. So, I'd like to close this satsang today by telling us not so much, as Swami says, to dwell on that failure. Even if we fail, what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? He says you'll be born. If you failed trying to find God, you did your best. He says you will be born in a family, in circumstances where you'll be able to pick up your efforts. I feel, and I'm sure many of you feel that way, in this life, at the right moment, all those things happened to me, which brought me back to the spiritual path. So I look back and we can see that, yes, I must have left it somewhere. In this life, I picked it again. But wisest is he, Yogananda said, who defines God, being in Him, serving Him, aspiring for Him night and day as the very definition of success in life, as the goal which we cannot and will not compromise on. Because ultimately, friends, that is what it is all about. So, whether it is reading, chanting, meditation, once a week, deep meditation, if you're feeling you're not doing well, you're failing, well, find others who are succeeding. Be with them, go to them. Sorry, I'm being distracted over here by other friends. Maybe others have come, but uh, find others who are like-minded, and in their magnetism, you will feel that why was I so worried? Why was I failing even? I just was not having the right magnetism. I was not associating with the right people. I had forgotten something which I have now been reminded of. So, anyway, the one could go on and on in this theme, but do some introspection, I would say, today. What are the things that you're trying to work on? Don't identify with that failure. Like that quote of immortality said, you are not those things. However, for the time you and I are in this dream, are in the realm of space and time, those things catch on to us. And we want to be able to each time learn how to withdraw and go past them. And it is possible. And we just have to be aware enough. And then once, like Master said, awareness precedes control. Once you're aware what is the problem, then keep working at it with a solution oriented mind. Don't think of the problem as too big. Oh, cigarettes, oh, laziness, or whatever it is. Say, okay, I know this problem is there. Here's my solution. This is what I'll do. This is with whom I'll do it, and this is how I'm going to do it. And keep assessing that week by week, and it all turns out very well. God bless you.